so now we're going to get into multiband compression, which is probably one of the most important tools in a mastering engineer's arsenal when mastering for techno and electronic music. And we're going to work here. So the first thing I'm going to do is set a hard knee and set it to work on the peak level. And so a multiband compressor is basically, this one has 3 compressors in it, and they work on 3 different fields or frequency spectrums independently of each other. So we can work on the sub one only. And we're going to take only the mono bus because that's what we're working on. And everything about below 100 hertz is just subwoofer bass, basically. And we got this guy in the mids, and I like to use the mid guy as our mid-high compressor for the kick. So we get that punchiness of the kick out. And I'm not going to do anything with the high compressor on this multiband compressor because I like to work with 4. So everything above 1K is going to get routed to this compressor, and we're going to bring his high end up to about 1K, and we're not going to touch this. So this down here is all the signal coming through here, and there we go. Again, hard knee. So we're gonna do a 1-to-3 ratio or so. And bring it down to about I like to loop a section where everything's going so that we can really hear it, what we're doing. See that right there, 11 dB of gain reduction. 18 dB is this way too much, so we're gonna bring it up. Get about 5 to 6 dB gain reduction here. Okay, again a 1-to-2.5, 3 ratio here. Here, this is just the kick area. And also make sure that our timing is like long attack, about 50 milliseconds or so. This gives the kick plenty of room to come in, and then the compressor kicks in and catches that low end bass, which is what we want it to do, and bring that up. Okay. Now, as you see, we're doing about 3 and 5 dB of gain reduction, so we need to add that back. And then on the highs here, a lot less of a ratio, about 1-to-1.33 here, and 1.49. Now on the hi-hats, we want a short attack and also a short release, just to catch the hi-hat and we're gonna make the waveform a little bit thicker of the hi-hat and of the high frequency content up here. Again, only while it's getting hit. There we go. And again, because we're doing about 1 to 2 dB reduction here, we're gonna bring this up. There we go. I'm gonna leave this in RMS mode for the low end actually. Just by listening, you can hear it with RMS mode. You can hear the kick come through just a little bit more, since the RMS is how the human ear perceives audio. It's the root mean square, and by having the compressor act on the RMS level, we can bring up that low sub area, but let the kick pop through, since that's just a short little peak. So now if we listen to the unprocessed versus our processed, you can hear that we've tamed a little bit of the low end there, made it all sound a little bit more coherent and together. Alright, now we're going to get into the stereo bus, which we've already done some EQing. Bring out just a little bit more of the high-end content in the stereo field. Again, if we turn this off, by turning on that filtering there, the EQ, we've cleaned out the mud, accentuated a little bit of that tone that's in the stereo field, the reverb back there, and brought in the highs, which really brighten up the track. Now we're gonna head over to our sum bus and apply the Glue Compressor. Again, this is just gonna add a little bit of, I guess the word is glue. We're just gonna add a little bit of glue to the mix and make everything kind of sit together and pump together. A long release and a long attack and a short release on this compressor, so that the compression really starts bouncing and it adds a little bit of movement to the whole track. Now we're definitely not going to do 70 dB or gain reduction, and really just a little bit of gain reduction here, 2-3 dB max. I'm going to bring this down until we start seeing some movement. There we go. Bring the gain back up. I'm going to add a second compressor here, this time with a short attack and also a short release, but a very small ratio. And the idea behind this is just to catch those peaks, just the tip there, and make everything kind of sit together well. Again, listening to the unprocessed version. Processed version, you can hear how everything has come up in the mix. Everything's starting to sound a little bit more glued together, coherent, like it belongs there, and a little bit chunkier. And the mono bus, I'm gonna do a little bit of EQ post compression. Now keep in mind, any EQ you do here is going to be hitting the compressors. So if you bring up the bass pre-compression, that's going to affect how this is compressing. Now I want to do a little bit of bass boost after compression, so that we boost the compressed signal and give it just a little bit more body. And I like to do this using the filters again, filtering out anything that we don't need. Slight dip again in the 250 area. And I'll bring up just a little bit of the highs. Now you see me adding these filters here, and the reason I do the high-end low pass filter is so that in case we have any artifacts or frequency content due to our processing that goes above the Nyquist frequency, we won't get aliasing with that. Not so important when you're just doing compression, but later on you'll see when we do a little bit of, I like to use saturation or harmonic exciters, you can get frequency content that then aliases, that goes above the Nyquist frequency and then aliases back down, and that just adds weird sounding artifacts to your mix or your master. Let's bring out the highs, mid and highs here just a little bit.